Previously on Gears.
Let's say hello to our very good friend Steve Smith in Cape Town. How are you doing, Stevie?
Hey, Sasha.
Top class. Are you good, my friend?
I'm well, and you?
World class. Great to speak to you again. Listen, I have to apologize for last week, but we were just so cut for time. So today we can have a good chat about BMW and the Quant family, and I like their cars.
Yes, I confess to being a bit of a fan.
Myself, actually, I'm a closet BMW fan. Not all of them, but most of them.
Well, you know, I didn't anticipate being a fan of this
Yeah.
car much, but it surprised me a little, I would say.
So now, listen, you've been driving the top and the bottom of the new ones.
Yeah. So started off with the M135i.
Sure.
Which, I mean, is a bit of a beast. 235 kilowatts, 450 Newton meters of torque. It's a real hot hatch. Very quick. With the M, it's got a couple of M tweaks in the suspension, and also some cool sort of aesthetic add-ons. A nice new front grille. The new back bumper obviously has that kind of M sportiness to it. So a very good-looking car. Hell of a quick. I mean, I don't know if you've driven one, but it's kind of eye-wateringly quick.
I haven't as yet, Stephen. I must say, I'd love to get my hands on it. I want to ask one thing about, you know, the sort of a compact kind of car with that much power. And the great thing still that I love about BMWs, they're still rear-wheel drive. What's it like on the road? Is it too firm, or have they managed to get the balance of that incredible speed and power well refined?
Look, look. Firstly, it's got BMW's brilliant 3-liter twin-turbo engine, and I've driven that in several incarnations of their various range. And I mean, it's one of the best engines ever made, I reckon. But the thing with this one series as well is, and with all the new generation BMWs, is that you've got different chassis settings. So you've got that lovely little button underneath your left hand that you can press for anything from Eco Pro up to Sport Plus, which genuinely changes the way the car behaves.
Amazing.
The suspension settings are significant. So it goes from, you know, sort of a little bit of a butt vibrating kind of firmness, especially on those low profile tires, but set up, you know, comfort mode if you're going for a longer drive and you want something a little bit more comfortable. The comfort plus or whatever is more than enough. It's comfortable enough. It's a very versatile car from that point of view, but it's flipping expensive.
Okay, before we get onto the price, because I know it is going to be rather scary, in terms of its size, I mean, how do you position the 1 Series, Steve, compared to like a 3 Series? I mean, is it a family kind of car?
No, look, especially not in the 2 doors, which is the variant I drove both in that and the 116. I wouldn't describe it as a family car. I mean, okay. I think it's a single man's car, to be honest. You know, it's not a family car. Or you could be married and have a girlfriend, but I think it's a guy's car who doesn't have a family. It's pretty tight space-wise inside, especially with the 2 doors.
Yeah. Okay, scare us with the price, Steve.
Okay, so base price 465K, which is already a lot. But as tested, the car that I drove we were looking at just over 520,000 Rand, which then puts it into way above everything that's a hatchback, except probably it's even more expensive than the RS3.
Sure.
And as lovely as the car is, I wouldn't quite put it in that ballpark in terms of performance and handling.
I mean, that is.
I mean, that Audi RS is something else altogether.
Yeah, as you mentioned last week, but I mean that is a crazy number.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's what a 135 BM costs, I mean, what is an M3 costing nowadays?
Sheesh, your M3 must be 800,000 or 900,000 Rand.
Sure.
Which is, you know, which makes, you know, it really what I liked about the previous generation 1 Series and the coupe, which I still think you can buy because the new 1 Series isn't available as a in the coupe version yet. But that 135 coupe, if you looked at that price compared to an M3, that looked like a real sort of bargain sports car, you know. I mean, you're looking at sort of 200,000 Rand cheaper than an M3, and the price, the performance differential was really small. That M135 coupe, I mean, goes like a bat out of hell. It's a lot of $500,000, half a bar. I don't know how many people have that kind of money lying around. I don't.
Definitely not in my checkbook. That's for sure. So, Steve, now we go from the top, and then we go to the 116. Okay.
No, this surprised the hell out of me. I was thinking, you know, some test cars. I guess I'm a bit spoiled. So some weeks I wake up on a Monday thinking, great, I'm getting XYZ fancy sports car, and the week's looking great. Sometimes you get smaller cars, little hatchbacks, a little Honda or whatever it might be. In this case, a 1 Series BMW, and in the range of BMWs, you think, okay, that's probably not the one that I really want to test. When you can get anything from an M6 to whatever. But geez, this little car, that 1.6 twin turbo is really quick, eh? Great handling. I mean, it really shows up what a fantastic chassis this is, because it's a rear-wheel drive, and that in itself is different in this market segment. It's the only one. It's the only hatchback that's still rear-wheel drive. But the handling is so fantastically neutral that it doesn't even feel like a rear-wheel drive car. It's got a great 50-50 weight balance, which this little 1.6 turbo handles perfectly. In fact, I was reading a review or some stats on the car, and 80% of BMW 1 Series owners didn't actually realize the car was rear-wheel drive. They all thought it was front-wheel drive.
Now, listen, would I be correct? Because I'm just having a guess here. I'm assuming that 1.6 turbo engine is the same as the Mini engine.
I think from it has the same DNA. I wouldn't say it's exactly the same engine, but it's pretty. I think it's based on the same engine. So we're looking at 100 kilowatts here, 220 newton meters of torque. So it's fairly pacey, eh?
Sure.
And I think you're able to exploit, which is the cool thing I like about this, because I was thinking this 1 Series chassis, like the 3 Series, is so brilliant that perhaps this smaller engine wouldn't really be able to give you all the nuances and the variations you can have through this car. The fact is that it does. And at its price, which is 266,000 Rand as the base price, it actually makes it look like a fairly good bargain as a fairly sporty car. And if you look at that price range, you know, you're up against what the new Golf 1.4 turbo, and one cheaper A3. So there, suddenly the 1 Series starts to look like a reasonable buy.
I tell you, you know what my only ever problem that I've had with the 1 Series and even with the 3 Series is that there is just nothing sexy about looking at the bumper of a 1 or 3 Series that has 116 or 316 on it. That has been I don't know if other people feel it, but to me, I'm just like, I love the fact there's a 1.6 turbo engine and it's going to go really, really well, but just looking at 116 in the back of the engine, I don't know. I would rebadge it somehow.
Yeah, I think with BMW, if you order the car yourself, you can actually order them without that number on the back.
Okay.
But I agree. I mean, you do look at the guy driving the 116 and you think, oh, you poor bastard, you couldn't afford the better car. So you feel a degree of sympathy for the guy instead of I guess he wants you to feel a bit more envy than sympathy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that badge, especially I think given the cheaper BMWs of the past, you know, it reminds me of the 316 when that 3 Series first came out. You got a 316, and that was a terrible car. The engine was
I mean, I think they were still carburetor driven, I think, in those days.
Yeah. Well, that's the one downside of it. The other thing that kind of divides people, you're right, are the looks. I mean, I don't know whether I wasn't a fan of the previous 1 Series hatch. I love the coupes. You know, suddenly somehow put a little bit of a boot on the back, and it transformed the whole look of the car. Suddenly it looked, you know, it reminded you of the old 3 Series. It was quite muscular. I really liked the way that car was transformed. I don't know what your take on this new look is. It's not my favorite. You know, I don't think the car's really well resolved from a design point of view. The rear lights do remind me of the new Polo quite a bit.
I tell you, I mean, there's just too many similarities in my opinion between, what BM are doing. I saw a new Golf the other day from the back, and I went, geez, they tried to copy the Alpha, they got that wrong. I mean, I don't know. There's no excitement coming out from certain designers.
Yeah, from a design point of view, I think there's quite a fine line to tread between designing a car that's very different to anything else, because the downside of that is those cars tend to date quite quickly.
Yeah. So
what looked really cool, funky, and apart from the herd, 5 years ago, now starts to look like very much a car of its time. Where, as much as I don't like, for example, the new Golf 7 doesn't really light my fire from a design point of view, but I know that in 10 years' time, that car isn't going to look like a car that really is 10 years old, if you know what I mean.
No, I think very, very valid point. I've never been a massive fan of the 1 Series, but I'll be honest, in my opinion, this to me is the best looking that in my opinion, that they've had. I think the back there could have been a little bit more aggressive, but I like it. I think it's good, and I'm just so chuffed that from 116, Steve, all the way to 135, you've actually got a really good selection of quality vehicles.
Yeah, look, I've driven the 125 as well, but I thought I'd really focus on the top and tails of the range. 125 is a great car, but for me, the gap between the 116 and the 125 isn't as great as between the 125 and the 135. Those are very different cars.
Yeah.
So which makes the 116 look like a really good deal for me. There wasn't a lot to choose from in everyday driving between the two. So there's a fair price difference. Really highly recommended 116i if anyone's looking for slightly sporty two-door. And two-door is quite, there are not many two-door hatches around.
For sure, for sure.
I think it's carved a really cool little niche for itself.
Very cool, I tell you, that's very impressive. Steve, what you're going to be driving next on your gallants across Cape Town?
Well, I've got a EX Infinity, which is the smaller version of that big FX SUV which we have talked about.
Yeah.
But what I have got coming up is the new Toyota Auris, and I've driven the Golf 7. So I think next week it'll be really interesting to talk about the comparison between those two cars, between the Auris Toyota and also the Golf 7, which are natural competitors. So, and Toyota has its following; it's very reliable, and obviously Golf fans are dyed in the wool. So I'm quite keen to see what this Auris is like compared to the hugely impressive Golf 7.
I look forward to that. I really do. Golf 7 versus Toyota Auris. Steve, it's always great to speak to you. Have a very safe and wonderful Easter weekend or time off, whatever you're doing, and we'll talk next Tuesday.
And same to you, Sasha. Good to chat as always.
All right, my friend. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Weekdays from 12 to 2 p.m. Central African Time.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Gears with Sasha Martinengo on bulls.co.za.